During the committee of the Symposium of Digital Design in Architecture 2021 or Mimarlıkta Sayısal Tasarım Sempozyumu 2021, and dear our fellow participants, warm greetings. We are Mario Lionar, as doctorate student in architecture at Ulusal University, and Professor Dr. Özgür Ediz, a professor of architecture at Ulusal University. It is an honor for us to be able to participate in this symposium and to present our study here. Let us start our presentation. The title of our study in Turkish is Taşlık Kahvesi ve Amcazade Hüseyin Paşa Yalısı, Fraktal Boyuta Dayalı Sayısal bir Analiz, and in English, the title is Revisiting Sedad Hakkı Eldem's Taşlık Coffeehouse and the Seaside Mansion of Amcazade Hüseyin Paşa, a numerical analysis based on fractal dimensions. The Taşlık Coffeehouse can be considered as one of the most famous and significant works of Sedad Eldem. This coffee house was designed as the realization of Eldem's mission to formulate new Turkish architecture based on Turkish house. Meanwhile, the mansion of Amcazade Hüseyin Paşa can be considered one of the best examples of classical Turkish architecture. This mansion can be considered one of the oldest mansions along the Bosphorus. According to the references, Eldem himself, along with some academicians, mentioned that the Taşlık Coffeehouse was inspired by the Amcazade mansion, and they also mentioned the striking similarity between these two buildings. In an interview, Eldem mentioned that the Taşlık Coffeehouse is a modern version of the Amcazade mansion. An anonymous article in the Architect periodical mentioned that the plan of the coffee house is one of the most striking elements of classical Turkish architecture. More specifically, Uğur Tanyeli also mentioned that the plan of the Taşlık Coffee House is almost identical with the plan of the Amcazade mansion, and Buzdoğan, Özkan, and Yenal conclude that the coffee house was a clear reference to the Amcazade mansion in terms of both the floor plan and the elevation. These comments and statements are qualitative and mostly descriptive. Therefore, our study aims to measure this claimed similarity between the Taşlık Coffeehouse and the Amcazade mansion in a more quantitative and numerical manner using fractal dimension analysis. Fractal dimension is a non-integer number indicating the visual complexity of any geometric object, including architecture. The higher the number, the more complex the object. There are many alternatives of how to apply fractal dimension analysis in architectural field, but for this study, we will focus on how the fractal dimension analysis can be used to investigate the issue of old architecture versus new architecture. The first alternative is calculating the fractal dimension of both the old architecture and the new architecture and then compare the fractal dimensions. This approach is more useful for architectural research. The second alternative is calculating the fractal dimension of the old architecture and designing new architecture so that the fractal dimension of the new architecture will be the same or similar to the fractal dimension of the old architecture. This is more common in architectural design. In this context, this study can be considered in the category of architectural research, which use fractal dimension analysis. To measure fractal dimension analysis, a procedure called box counting method was used. This procedure combines graphic and mathematical steps to calculate fractal dimension. Fractal analysis on the floor plans may provide information about the mathematical similarity in terms of spatial arrangement. There are two floor plans which were drawn and calculated in this study. Meanwhile, fractal analysis on the elevations may provide information about the mathematical similarity in terms of elevation appearance. There are 4 elevations in this study. However, in this study, a particular methodological approach was applied to analyze the elevations. The elevations were depicted in 5 hierarchical levels of visual complexity. This was meant to investigate whether the similarity might be found in all visual layers or only in certain layers. The first and the least complex layer is the silhouette. The second is mass order. The third is structure. The fourth is elevation design. And the fifth, which is the most complex, is material texture. This results in a total of 20 elevation drawings. So let us look at the mathematical findings. To measure the mathematical similarity, we must calculate the difference between fractal dimensions of the coffee house and the mansion. If the difference is between 0 and 1%, it means a high similarity or very similar. If the difference is between 1 and 4%, it means similar, and if the difference is bigger than 4%, it means not similar. From the 21 comparisons which were conducted, a total of 14 similarities were found. One similarity was found between the floor plans, and 13 similarities were found between the elevations. Furthermore, these similarities were distributed in a homogeneous manner in all the levels or layers of visual complexity. As an additional analysis, the window details of the coffee house and the mansion were also compared, and the comparison also shows similarity. In conclusion, fractal dimension analysis confirmed the visual similarity between Taşlık Coffeehouse and Amcazade mansion in a numerically and mathematically measurable manner. Therefore, this study provides quantitative, mathematical, and numerical findings about the close similarity between these two architectural works. At the same time, there was also other findings. First, the silhouette or the front elevations of the Taşlık Coffeehouse is simpler than the Amcazade mansion. And second, although the floor plans are still considered similar, the floor plan of the Taşlık Coffeehouse is also still simpler than the Amcazade mansion. In short, the Taşlık Coffeehouse is still simpler and less complex. This may be interpreted as Eldem's effort to modernize in his own way while still maintaining the qualities of Turkish qualities. That is the conclusion of our presentation. Thank you for your attention.